Sandy and I lived right next to Vorhees for 15 years. And it's basically a white flight community from South Philadelphia. And so as I was watching this, I was very interested to see and almost predicted what the response would be. We had an African American move into our community, and I can remember what the response was at the time. I was more interested in the theological issues that were raised, and this seems to me to be a kind of a critical issue for a lot of people, especially more conservative Christians who have always seen Muslims as fair game for a ground for evangelism. And I was raised that way. And so we were always given distorted pictures of who Muslims were, and this becomes ingrained in our consciousness, and it becomes ingrained in our Christian culture. They're different, and when they're different, we all of a sudden create stereotypes, slurs, and then we begin to want to separate ourselves from them, to exclude them. And then we make laws and make it difficult for them to survive, and they are outgrouped in the community. And that creates a bigotry and prejudice, and that's something that ultimately leads, as George Kelsey says in his book, The Social Logic of Prejudice is to eliminate and finally to exterminate. And so we live in a day in which we've just become incredibly aware of that the last 2 weeks. Here was a man that lived in a culture and an ethos in which he thought it was necessary to commit an act of genocide in a church. That's where prejudice leads, ultimately. And so we always have to be careful about prejudice and bigotry. Whenever I speak now or pray in a public service, as I did today and at the Martin Luther King celebration, I always begin with, "Dear God, Adonai, Allah, and you, God of all other names and colors." We all worship the same God. We all have the same values. Oh, we may have different arguments about whether Jesus Christ was God or not. But the important thing is we all believe in compassion, we all believe in justice, we all believe in peace, and that's what unites us. And that's why we're together, and that's why we're all one faith in that sense, because these are the values that are important. Even Yahweh is I am, and then he defines himself as I am compassionate, I am gracious and merciful. And that's basically underlies all the whole Judeo-Christian and Buddhist traditions, Hindu traditions, and all traditions are based on compassion.
This evening is the second time that I have seen this movie. And both times I find it quite remarkable at the outreach that the Catholics, the Jews, and other communities made in Vorhees to get the mosque built. The one question that I do have is I want to know why it's taken us 12 years and it only took them 5.
So why don't you help answer that question?
I don't know the answer.
No, you were there for so much of the process.
Oh.
What did you witness that you can share?
A number of years ago, I was sitting with some friends and we were discussing the construction and the building of a mosque. And I said, anytime you need help, just call. I will whatever it takes, I will be there and I will rally the troops. So 2.5 years ago, I think it was, I got a phone call, we needed help. Rallied the troops, went to Goleta City Hall on 2 occasions, and had the privilege and the honor of being able to stand up in front of standing room only, pleading a case for an Islamic center. When I first came to live here, driving around, I think it was 10 years ago, I noticed there was a house of worship on every single corner that I drove by. So to me, it really wasn't difficult to be able to stand up and say, we all have a place to worship. We all have a place to send our children to learn our traditions, to learn our faith. Why not an Islamic center?
So as usual, we have an embarrassment of riches in terms of the quality of the minds of the people before you tonight, but such limited amount of time. And we also have a short video that is a recap of what's happening with the Islamic Center now. There's so much more, and you can learn a lot more about it, I'm sure, by going to the website. So, are you ready to cue that? Yeah. And we're going to do this, we're going to see this. If there's a little time, we'll take it for other comments. And then we're going to break. So let me just give you the kind of overview for after the film. Our Muslim brothers and sisters are going to gather over there behind the table, and they're going to do the evening prayer. After the date. Right, thank you. So, and Yama, you'll stand up and eat the first date and chew us all.
Okay, I did.
And then we'll disperse. And while they're doing the prayer, we'll try to have a silence here in respect to the prayer. For those of you who would like to go out and walk the labyrinth for about 10 minutes, we can do that. Or to walk over to the chapel. So John, in the back of the room with the red shirt, is opening up the chapel. So those of you who would like to go into the sanctuary, this is a very special time to do that. So then we will come back, and then we will line up, and we'll be calling out table numbers to line up for dinner after that. Yes.
And everyone join the prayer?
Yes, of course. The question is, can they join the prayer?
Yeah.
Of course, yes. Thanks for the good question. Okay, cue the film.
Gam ya sing la la ya la ya la la ya la ya la la ya la 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 la. Repeat after me. Hine Table at the front, sing louder. Hine mato humanai sheverachim gam yachad la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Have a beautiful evening, everybody.
This debate, who could win people to their faith easiest. There happened to be a bear wandering around in our campground, and so we made this bet who could convert that bear to their faith. So I lured the bear over to a lake, began to preach to him, and he got bored, fell in the water. I baptized him, and he became a Christian. Imam Yana had him facing toward the east, and he began to preach to him. The bear got bored, nodded toward the east, So Yana declared him a Muslim. So we went to look for Cantor Childs, and he was on the path, all bloodied up. Bear had just clawed him to death, blood all over the place. We said, what happened? He said, I guess I shouldn't have started with the circumcision.